Nashville has been through a lot, and we have a lot in our community that have been through a lot. And so we're all here today to be able to look into what we're doing and how we're doing it and what we need to continue to do to help those that are facing hardships. And so we have with us Dr. Krum with the Metro Action Commission. And Dr. Krum, if you would introduce the other two individuals that will be presenting with you and your team members as well, and then we can go ahead and get started. Dr. Krum did request this meeting after so many emails going back and forth between us and then with some other information in the community. And so I think this is a good step forward for us to be able to talk to her directly and understand what MAC has been doing and what we're doing from here. Thank you, Dr. Krum.
Thank you, Council Member Suara, and it's my pleasure to be here, and thank you for responding so quickly to my request for this meeting. We think it's extremely important that Metro Council and others understand the HOPE program, what it does, what it's designed to do, but also to make sure that, to the best of our ability, that we're working together to help make sure that people in our community who are counting on us to help them during a very difficult time are receiving the services that they need. I want to introduce, joining me today is Judge Rachel Bell. I want to say she needs no introduction, but she, I think, will be talking about legacy today. And then Saul Solomon from MDHA is also joining because of the partnership that the HOPE program has also with, actually with both of these incredible organizations and the work that we're doing. So I want to, again, begin by saying thank you to Councilmember Suara and to other council members as well. Thank you all so much for this opportunity. I really just want to walk you a little bit through the HOPE program, because one of the things that we're finding is that there are quite a few rental assistance programs out there, and that oftentimes people are confused about which one is which. There's some federal regulation that we're also going to refer you all to today that we hope will help you understand this program in particular. There should be pages, you should have a blue page that's being made available to you. If you will, that will assist you at least in understanding some of the requirements of the HOPE program. There have been, as I said, a number of rental assistance programs, and one of the things that we're finding is that people are oftentimes both confusing the programs, but also, in some cases, the dates associated with them. So my hope today is to just give you a little bit of information about the HOPE program, as well as what Metropolitan Action Commission is doing. So if you'll just follow along with on the screen, there should be a PowerPoint presentation that's going along with my comments. The first thing I want to make sure I mention is that the HOPE program application, it is an online system. Even though customers are able to come into our building to receive assistance with their application, it is an online application. It is not a paper application. So the first thing that I'll note is how you can access the application for the HOPE program. It's nashville.gov/MAC. Benita, if you'll advance the slide, it would help. Also, hope.nashville.gov, and then hub.nashville.gov, and hopefully you'll be able to move that along as we're going through. So that's how you go about accessing the portal so that you can apply. Let me mention that you can apply by using your cell phone, using your tablet, using a computer, and again, you may also come into our offices or visit some of the activities we're doing in the community to assist you with getting an application into our portal. Who may apply for the HOPE program? Either the tenant or the landlord may apply, tenant or landlord. However, if the landlord initiates the application, the tenant still is the qualifying entity. So even if the landlord has submitted the application, it's actually the tenant's information that is used for eligibility. And these are federal requirements that I'm walking you through at this point. Also, if the landlord does initiate the application, the tenant has to co-sign the application. So the landlord has the right to initiate, but the tenant also has to co-sign the application. So I want to make sure that that's clear in terms of who can apply. You'll see some of this information also on the blue handout that is provided to you, which actually provides you with a little bit more detail than some of what I'm covering. The next thing that I want to mention is that the HOPE program is governed by Treasury guidance. And it's important that you are aware that it's governed by Treasury guidance because since the inception of the program, that guidance has changed 4 times, with yesterday now being the 5th time that guidance has changed. What that essentially means is that each time that guidance changes, our organization has to adjust the policies that we are required to write to match this guidance with the change that comes as a part of it. So for your information, the first set of guidance was given to us on January 19th, which was actually prior to Metropolitan Action Commission having the funding. The next set of guidance came in February on the 22nd. The next guidance was March 16th. The next was May 7th. And then as recently as yesterday, there was additional guidance that was provided to our organization as to how these dollars are to be administered. If I'll go on to the next part of the presentation, the requirement for the HOPE program is that individuals must be either 80% or below AMI for Davidson County. And just as an example, that means for a household of 1, the annual income cannot exceed $46,000, up to a person with a 6-person household. The 6-person household income cannot exceed $76,400. I can go through the other household sizes, but we'll be more than happy to provide that information to you. In addition to that, there are some key requirements, eligibility requirements that's a part of the HOPE program. Incomes can again be no more than 80% of AMI. And then these specific requirements regarding the household. 1 or more individuals in the household has qualified for unemployment benefits or has experienced a reduction in household income, incurred significant cost, or experienced other financial hardships due directly to or indirectly to COVID. So this cannot be simply that the person is experiencing financial hardship. That financial hardship must be tied directly to the coronavirus outbreak. Also, an important thing to remember as a part of the eligibility requirements is that 1 or more individuals in the household must be able to demonstrate a risk of experiencing homelessness or housing instability, which may include they could have a past due utility or rent notice and eviction notice. They can prove that they're living in unsafe or unhealthy living conditions, or any other evidence that would put them at risk for housing instability. Additional key eligibility requirements, it's important to note that for eligibility purposes, we are allowed to only consider their household income from 2020, or we have to confirm monthly income for the household is received at the time of the application. And that monthly income, whatever it is, it has to be 30 days, and then we extrapolate it over 12 months to determine their income. I should also mention that if we use the monthly income to determine eligibility, we must recertify that household every 3 months if that person wants to receive help beyond the time, the initial application period. Another important or an additional important requirements, in general, income determination requires that we have a written attestation from the applicant. And that written attestation must document something that we can actually look at, such as their W-2, pay stubs, wage statements, tax filings, bank statements, or an attestation from their employer. This is all information that has to be reviewed by our organization in order to determine eligibility. An individual can, however, be considered categorically eligible. So that means if they've already been determined to have a certain income by another federal program. So for example, if they have unemployment, then as soon as we see that they have unemployment, there's no need for any additional income requirement. The same is true if they receive TANF, if they receive Social Security, that is considered a categorically eligible areas. Now, this is important because sometimes we run into this with our customers. If an applicant's income, if we cannot verify it because their business shut down due to COVID, or because they're paid in cash, as many of the folks that we serve are, they can sign a written attestation to us indicating that this is their income. We are then again required to recertify them every 3 months. I think it's important to note that while the AMI that we can serve goes up to 80%, we must prioritize individuals with AMIs below 50%. So even though we can have applications in the system where an individual may be at 70% AMI, 60% AMI, we're required to prioritize anyone who's at 50% AMI, below 50% AMI, and individuals, household members who have been unemployed for 90 days. At least 90% of the funding that we receive must be used for direct assistance to the customers that we're serving. So only 10% of the funds that we receive can be used for administrative cost. The remaining 90% has to be for individuals. Payments, just so that you'll know, our payments can go up to 12 months in arrears, as long as there are no arrears that are prior to March of 2020. We can go 12 months in arrears, and we can go 3 months forward. That means a maximum of, or total of 15 months assistance that we are able to provide through this particular program. If they need assistance beyond that, additional 3 months can be added, but we would have to recertify them as eligible. We must, as the grantee, that's Metro Action Commission, we must seek first to make a direct payment to the landlord or the utility provider. So our payments must go directly to the landlord or to the utility provider. It cannot go to the tenant as the first choice. It can only go to the tenant for it to be paid to the landlord if the landlord refuses to take payment from us directly. We must make reasonable efforts, and the standard is specific, that after initially contacting the landlord, they have 7 days to respond to us, and then there's an additional 5 days where we are required to send either an email, contact them by phone to get the information. It is only at that point that we can move forward with alternate means to take care of what the tenant needs. Other requirements that are important for you to note is that we must ensure that the tenant has not received assistance under any other rental program. The exception to that is if it's federally subsidized housing, we can pay the tenant portion of the federally subsidized housing. We can only pay prospective rent payments if we have covered the arrears. So for example, in order for me to pay that person's rent forward, I must have also assisted that individual with the arrears in the apartment that they are dwelling in. I think that's important to also note. The HOPE program has a number of reporting requirements for our organization at this time, and those requirements increase with each additional guidance that takes place. Currently, we're required to report the number of eligible households that receive assistance, the acceptance rate of applicants for assistance, the types of assistance that we provide, the average amount of funding provided per household, and then we're required to report the income-eligible households, first by those who are less than or equal to 30% AMI, between 30 and 50% AMI, and between 50 and 80% AMI. We also are required to report the average number of monthly rental or utility payments that each household receive. I wanted to cover those things because I think it would be helpful for you as council members and others who might be interested to know of the very specific guidance or requirements tied to this program. I did not go over all of them with you in detail. That's why we provided the documentation that's on the blue sheet so that you can see more thoroughly what those requirements are. I want to speak just for a few minutes to the challenges with the HOPE program, and there is a national survey that looks at overall or throughout the country programs that are the rental assistance programs like the one we are administering. When we looked at that survey, what we found is that the challenges that we have had at Metropolitan Action Commission is consistent with the challenges that are happening nationally. And I've cited some of the information from that study that applies to Metropolitan Action Commission. In the study, it notes that those who took the study identified that staff capacity to screen and administer the ERA program, that 60% of them indicated that that was a challenge. In our situation, what that essentially means is our ability to screen is based on the information that is actually in the system, the information that's provided by our customer. When information is missing, that screening process is complicated because we cannot determine if that individual is actually eligible for the services. The other thing that it mentions is the technical capacity, and I will mention this a little bit later as well, is the amount of dollars that we have invested in not only the system that we stood up in order for the applications to be placed in, but also we have purchased quite a bit of technology as well to use for the folks who are working as a part of the HOPE program. The next bullet in terms of challenges on the national level that also applies to Metro Action Commission is the tenant responses. 56% of those organizations who administer this nationally indicated the struggle with responsiveness from our tenants or from tenants, and 44% challenges with getting information from landlords. That is consistent with what we experience as Metropolitan Action Commission, sometimes because tenants don't have income now, feel like that because they don't have income, aren't sure what they need to do given that they can't get information from their previous employers. So we spend a bit of time working with them on how they can still satisfy this requirement. In addition to that, when the tenant believes that the information that they're going to provide, that if the landlord is not going to participate with them, they're also hesitant to provide information to our organization. An additional challenge that we've experienced, again, that's also consistent with the national challenges is the buildup of infrastructure. As mentioned, we have a system, an online system that is on a platform that is actually designed by Salesforce. That's the same system that our hub Nashville is on. So there was a period of time where that system had to be developed. And if you note the national information, it says over 90% built up their application and review infrastructure. And that is true for our organization as well. Because we knew what the requirements were going to be and what the reporting requirements were going to be, we knew that it was important to make sure that we had the infrastructure in place. Also because we knew there would be additional funding coming and an opportunity to outreach to others, that it was important that we had that capacity. 75% increase their outreach. The same is true for us in terms of increasing our outreach to the community, to landlords, to tenants, making sure that we had the capacity necessary to be able to assist those who are a part of our community. I think the next thing that I'd like to just talk a little bit about is our strategy for improving the areas that I mentioned. Approximately 2 weeks ago, our organization made the decision that we would go reach out to the public and say to them that we want to be able to assist you. These are the barriers that are causing us not to be able to process your applications. We made that appeal to the public, and I am excited to say to you that appeal has been successful. That appeal to the public was to say to them that it's important for us to be able to help you get your documentation so that we can assist you. One of the local news stations assisted us in actually having our team members present. We started to get calls from our customers, and the information started to be uploaded into the system. So one of the things that we did to address the challenges was we reversed our call system, meaning that before our customers would call in to our call center team would try and stay with them on the phone. They would make attempts to help them upload their information. The end result of that was a huge backlog of people waiting on hold, trying to get through to us. So we shifted our call process to a reverse call, which means that when the customer calls in, we simply take 3 bits of information: application number, their name, and a good contact number. And I want to make sure I say that clearly, a good contact number, because oftentimes the original number that's put in the system is either disconnected or no longer, not in service at the moment. Our team then calls back and stays on the phone with that customer to help them get what they need into the system. If the customer isn't comfortable on the phone, they can come in, or our team will meet them at a local community center or someplace that would assist them in being able to get their information uploaded. In addition to that, our offices are open Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So we extended our office hours to accommodate those individuals who are working, who needed additional time in order, or different times in order to come in. Our team also works on Saturday from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. We have partnered with large and small landlords in a structure that allows us to literally go into the system and look at how many customers they have with applications. We group all of those applications together, meet with the landlords, and show them exactly what is missing that's keeping their their tenant from being processed. And then we work directly with the landlord on helping us get the information both from their tenant and from them. In addition to working with the larger landlords to accomplish this, we have a team of people who work specifically with the courts, and Judge Bell is here to talk about the work that we're doing with the courts. We do or host upload fairs in the community. So we go to the community centers. We will actually also come to an apartment complex at their request and help their tenants to upload information. These were strategies we were already offering to the community. We're just seeing more people take advantage of them. We are in the process of hiring additional team members. In addition to hiring team members to do more of the callbacks to our customers who are calling in, and additional processors. We have formed and actually have another meeting today, a partnership with MDHA regarding their residents to ensure that the residents that they have in our system, and even those who aren't, who are in rental arrears. Saul Solomon is here to talk about that partnership, where we will work directly with the tenants of MDHA housing to help avoid evictions for them, but also to help them cover the rental arrears that they have for those who qualify. We are also getting ready for the second set of funding, which is ERA2. That means in that situation, we are building out the existing portal so that partners who are interested in administering the program have the opportunity to do so through that system. We're administering it through the same system because Treasury requirements are that with the second set of funding, which is ERA2, that it's actually the combination of that funding that has to be tracked, and I'll be more specific in my example. Let's say under ERA1, which is what we are currently administering, a person receives 13 months of assistance. Then under ERA2, they need help again. The maximum amount that they can receive assistance between the two programs is 18 months. So to try and track that through two different systems would be very difficult for us to accomplish as a government, and it could possibly cause us to not be in compliance. Those are my comments about the strategies for improvements that we have. If it's okay, Councilmember Suara, I'll turn the mic over to Judge Bell to talk about the work we're doing with her team and the Legacy Court.
Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't.
Is there one there?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you, Dr. Kroom, for the presentation and the information that you provided. Again, my name is Rachel Bell, one of your General Sessions Court judges here with General Sessions Court. I'm very excited about the partnership that we have with MDHA and also with MAC and all of our other organizations. I want to commend the city for having an affordable housing task force. I also want to commend the city for taking on this arduous, tumultuous situation, dealing with people, the least of these, I would like to call it, people that are dealing with marginalized situations. As one of my friends says, people that are pushed to the margins, and trying to see how we can help them and streamline our government agencies and our government organizations to do something. So the court was working to develop a housing court back in 2019, long before the pandemic, long before the tornado, long before a number of things were happening. But we were asked by the city to also focus on helping affordable housing and the eviction crisis that was happening in the city of Nashville. So we pivoted. I know that's the favorite word right now, or not your favorite word, you're tired of hearing that word. But we pivoted, and we needed to move the needle in a different direction. So we did that in the partnership with MAC and our other nonprofit partners, United Way, with the CARES grant funding, Salvation Army, churches, private donors, has been actually unprecedented. Since we've started our court in February 8th, which was the date that a court order was sent out, asking all the individuals that were pending eviction. At that time, it was 1,863 cases. Richard Rooker's office stepped up to the plate, did a great job. Our civil court, circuit court clerk, asked him to send out a letter to each one of the landlords, their attorneys, and the tenants, indicating to them that we were court ordering them to go to mediation. At that time, there was a court order from the Tennessee Supreme Court indicating that mediation could and would be an option for individuals to seek settlement and resolve for matters that they could. Out of those 1,863 cases, to date, 2,056 cases have been identified to come to our court. 49% of those cases in which we asked them to come have come. Out of those 49 cases, 49% of those cases, that was 1,015 cases, 65% of those cases are still being processed. And so that's 664 cases that are still being processed that have come to the Housing Resource Diversionary Court. Out of the ones that are still being processed, and the ones that have come, 14% of those have been settled, which is great. The number is usually about 5%, 6%, but we're hitting the mark higher than normal. But this is not a normal situation. Normally, a housing court comes in not dealing with a pandemic and not dealing with other issues that you have to kind of get through this process. Housing courts are normally only focused on non-payment of rent, not any other issues. So some of these matters that aren't being able to settle are not because of just non-payment of rent. There's a bad relationship now with the landlord and the tenant. There may be criminal activity. The tenant has decided to vacate. The tenant has vacated. The landlord is now in a situation where they can't continue to rent the property, or now they've decided in the city of Nashville to sell their property. And you can't hold a landlord hand-tied if they've decided to sell their property and they want to move, in a different direction. So the court has come in to do as much as we can. Without this court, we wouldn't have these options where the landlord and the tenant could seek rental assistance, could seek opportunities to try to see if they would receive the arrearage, as Dr. Kroon said, 12 months back, 3 months going forward, and then ER2, another 3 months, 18 months. This is actually, very thankful to the United States government for putting these funds in place. Otherwise, we wouldn't have these opportunities. It would be the normal Metro Action Commission process. It would be the normal private donor process. But coming together to streamline the court. So just to give you a little insight, our eviction court, which people call, is courtroom 1A and 1B. It's open every day, Monday through Friday. All 11 judges, myself included, preside over those dockets every week. Individuals have a right, landlords have a right, tenants have a right to proceed with their evictions at any time. The court that we have, the Housing Resource Diversionary Court, called Legacy, is a voluntary court. Nobody's forced into it. The landlord agrees to come. The tenant agrees to come. As we work through that process, they have 3 different dockets. One is at 1:30, which comes from 1A to 1B. That's their first initial appearance to see if they've actually gotten into the MAC portal, if they're in the Legacy portal, what are the next steps. Metro Action Commission comes every Tuesday, and they sit in the courtroom and in the hallway to work with those individuals to let them know what their next steps are. They also talk to the landlord. They also talk to the landlord's attorney to let them know we need a few more documents, or to the tenant, we need a few more documents, and we need to schedule an appointment with you. We also have a 2:30 docket. The 2:30 docket is the second appearance, or that docket is specifically for MDHA, with our partnership with Vanderbilt Housing Law Clinic. And it's also specifically for MAC, any cases that we already know that are in their system to come to our court. That's the 2:30 docket. Then the 3:30 docket are cases that we have, at first we identified with Nashville Conflict Resolution Center for cases that were already mediated, settled, and needed to be processed through our system. But basically, the 1:30 docket is the first appearance, 2:30 docket is the second appearance, 3:30 docket is your third appearance. If I put you on the 3:30 docket and we haven't gotten some resolve, the landlord has the option to say, you know what, we've done everything we can. We're going to go back to eviction court. We're going to go back to trial. At any time, the tenant can say, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to go to trial. The landlord can say, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to go back to trial. As I stated earlier, only 24% of those cases are asking to go back to trial. But because MAC continues to work with them, United Way continues to work with them, and all of our other nonprofit partners, 7% of those are then coming back. It's like, wow, there's funding available. So I have had the ability to non-suit or settle, set aside some judgments that have come through because the landlord has decided, I'm going to let this tenant stay. I didn't know I could get this $22,000 overage. Last week, or the last docket we had on Tuesday, I think at least it was about 15 cases, $22,000, $32,000, $15,000. I asked the lawyer, I said, now, I know you normally get judgments, but how often do you actually get paid on the judgment and not still trying to get a payment arrangement? These individuals, a lot of the time, won't be able to pay. Yes, it's going to affect their credit. And a lot of them may be on payment arrangement for $25 a month. So we have advocated to get the landlord to understand that this process does take some time. However, you will get your 12 months arrearage, 3 months forward. The tenant can keep a roof over their head. And not only do we have that, once the case is resolved, we have a partnership with Metro Action Commission and a number of other organizations in the city with the first-time homebuyer program. And so those individuals that are now staying in their units or their residential units are also now able to get into a first-time homebuyer program. Maybe they can move from being a renter and then get into being a first-time owner or a first-place marketplace rent. So we're really excited about those things, but we do know that new processes come with challenges. And so I'm here to answer any questions that you may have. But without this court, this is one of the first courts like this in the state of Tennessee. We hit the ground running. We've had probably, I don't know how many meetings. When we first started, we probably had 10 meetings a week at 8:30 in the morning, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, duplicate meetings, meeting with council members as well, meeting with the city, meeting with the Affordable Task Force, meeting with the eviction partnerships, the nonprofits. They have a financial assistance network meeting after meeting after meeting, but moving the needle forward. And I always will say that the target keeps moving, but we keep hitting the bullseye. I do believe that there are more things that can be done. We're here to listen, we're here to help, but I do believe the city and the tenants understanding that there's a process, there's a court that's here to help them, they respond. A lot of the time they won't respond just to the landlord. A lot of time they won't respond just to Metro Action Commission. A lot of time they won't respond just to United Way. A lot of time they just won't respond from the attorney. When they get a letter from Richard Ricker's office saying the court says you have a court date, which we send those letters, they come to court. And when they come to court, we're able then to hand them back to the nonprofit partner, if that's our partner, or Metro Action Commission. There are some individuals that don't meet the requirements for United Way or CARES grant funding, and some of them meet the requirements for MAC. One thing that we are is a settlement court. That's why it's called the Housing Resource Diversionary Court. We look for all resources, private donors, nonprofit donors, church, Metro Action Commission, whichever organization wants to assist and can assist those individuals, we do. But our priority is funneling and getting them through the Metro Action Commission system. Once they've gone through their system and there's a glitch or they haven't provided their documents, that's why we have the court. If Metro Action Commission identifies that they don't meet the requirements of ERA funding, then we look at our next resource, Salvation Army, United Way, CARES grant funding, if there's some left. I think there's none left now as of a couple of weeks ago. But there are private donors that have stepped up to the plate as well. So, it's taken some time to get everything together, but having Richard Ricker's office come in and create a very specialized docket on a Tuesday for my staff and myself to take on a Tuesday court in the afternoon every Tuesday and work the needle to try to move people forward. Like Dr. Kroom said, staying on the phone with them for 2 or 3 hours, one person working with one person, trying to get them through the portal and get them through the system. It's not a system that necessarily we created. We were mandated to create it, but we also have an obligation to help the people where they are. And so I believe that we're doing a great job with that. However, this is kind of a 90-day report, so we're getting there. I do have a report that I do want to give. I will send it out to the Affordable Housing Task Force once I review it and make sure that it has all of the calculations, because I was over here with my calculator doing the percentages of the numbers, but I want to make sure that you can have that as well. If you have any questions or concerns, you can always reach me at 615-862-8341. Most of you have my cell number. Since this is on Channel 3, I'm not going to give that out, but most of you have my cell number, and you can get it from me at the end of this session. And if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them. Okay.
Thank you, Judge Bell. Mr. Solomon.
I will just add, I don't know, I know Judge Bell is probably looking at her numbers, but our numbers indicate just over $1 million through Legacy Court from the MAC Hope program.
Well, good morning. I'm Saul Solomon, Interim Director for MDHA, and I have the pleasure of following, unfortunately, these two incredible professionals. I can't thank you enough for the work that you've done in this area. We have been working with Judge Bell really since the idea first came into her mind, and she really is the prime mover of this. Our council has worked hand in glove with her to help establish that we're a real believer in it, and we want all our cases referred there. We're in a kind of interesting position here. I've worked in the public sector, ran businesses in the public and private sector, and I found that no matter where I am, if we've got two systems, two IT systems, you ask them the same question, you get two different answers. That's just the way the world works. So that being said, a good number to look at is about 80% of our tenants are paying and are current. Okay, so let's not lose sight of the fact that most of our tenants are paying, but 20% is still a lot. We have about 6,000 households that we're responsible for, and we have anywhere, we have roughly 1,200, we think, that are in some form of arrears right now. We have not taken any specific action, i.e. started any court action with respect to any people who, since the pandemic started. you know, one of the issues we're facing is, you know, if you come in and you recertify with MDHA, if you're an MDHA tenant, you come in and you recertify what your income is, you could go down in paying as little as $25 a month and still stay in your apartment. And so it is interesting what the phenomenon is and why our receivables has grown as much as they have. They basically have tripled. It's somewhere between 1.5 and 2 million. Normally, our unpaid tenant balances are more in the neighborhood of $400,000 or $500,000. So clearly, in one way or another, the moratorium on evictions has had an impact on tenants paying, and we don't really know yet why that is. Obviously, we do what all landlords do. We send letters to tenants. We try to get their attention when we see them on the property. And we've, as Ms. Kroom has pointed out, we've had fairs. We tried to communicate to them about what is available. We do know that about 150 of our tenants have made application through the system. We've also been working with Ms. Kroom, and we're hopeful that by mid-July or sometime thereafter, knowing the IT world, that we will actually have direct access to the system. We can help our tenants fill out the application, and we can actually approve. So I think that will help as well. I think what Judge Bell said is really important. I think everybody needs to understand this, is that merely initiating the only way we can get into Judge Bell's court right now is by initiating an action in Sessions Court, which means, as Judge Bell pointed out, they might not read a letter, they might not do anything else, but if they get a court order from Richard Rooker, they will show up. And so that's really what we're trying to do. We're trying to understand and get people to understand what's available to them and how can we help them help themselves. And so, so initiating the process doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean that eviction is going to happen anytime soon. It means it's going to get referred to Judge Bell's court, where MAC will be, because almost all of our residents are going to be eligible for the program. And so we're really in a very good position. But none of us should get upset, alarmed, or concerned if at some future date there's a group of tenants we can't seem to be able to get in touch with other than this way. But we are not in the eviction business. You know, I've said this many times. I've learned this from Judge Bell, Will Chopin. We are in the housing business, and so we don't expect there to be a lot of evictions. What we do expect is that we want to help people help themselves. So, with that, I've concluded my remarks. And I think the partnership with both of these professionals couldn't be better. And so I'm also here to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Can I add something?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'd like to yield the floor to add something. Alicia Haddock is here. She was one of the first initial individuals that was helping with the pilot project when she was the director over at Magruder Center with Catholic Charities. So I want to give her a shout out. But the exciting thing about MDHA, I had gone up to New York to see a Red Hook housing court up there. The Music Community Court has a lot of models, very much like Red Hook. And when we went before Harbison, before Saul Solomon was the interim director, we did talk to them about no longer filing evictions with MDHA, and they said, you know what, we'll consider that for non-payment of rent. So not only are we a partner with MDHA, we're going to have court at each one of the apartment complexes. So we will be at Cumberland View on the grounds. We will be at Cheatham Place on the grounds. We'll be at Andrew Jackson on the grounds. We're not going to have them come to the Justice Berkshire building. We're also not going to have them come to the Satellite Court at the Magruder Center. The Magruder Center Satellite Court is for when we are trying to connect them to the resources. We're trying to get them through the process. We're going to meet them exactly where they are. So we're meeting this afternoon about how we're going to start doing that. So I've already talked to one of my court officers here. We're going to go to the community centers there and meet the people that are dealing with the non-payment rent. What are the issues that they have? and they really just have to walk out of their apartment or walk out of their apartment to meet with us on that particular day. So we're not going to make it where they can't get to the courthouse, have to go through the magnetometers, have to pay for parking, have to take off work. We're going to meet them where they are on a schedule that's best for the residents, and we're excited about that initiative that we're going to be talking about this afternoon. So I'm excited about it, and I'm very happy. And I'm just really excited that MDHA, as he said, is not in the eviction business and really wants to see the people keep a roof over their heads, and that's the important thing right now. So I don't have anything else to say.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Kroom, Judge Bill, and Mr. Solomon. So at this point, I want to ask if council members have any questions. All right. I can't see. There we go. Councilmember Allen, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a bunch, and I'll ask some and then come back around if I can. So this is a whole new vocabulary that I'm learning as I go through this, and I'm so grateful to know that there is a process and funding available, and I'm just hopeful that we can connect all the landlords and tenants with the funding and the process before it's too late. And I'm not even sure when too late is. I know that the CDC has extended the deadline from June 30th to July 31, which sounds huge to me. So I'm hopeful that that gives us enough time that the things you've talked about scaling up can fall into place, and the IT platform that supposedly is going to be ready in mid-July can be useful. So one question is: are the private landlords waiting for these CDC deadlines, or are they going ahead and trying to push people out, or is there time to get all these pieces in place to scale up so that my understanding is we got 20 million with the ERA 1, and then another 60 million is coming with the ERA 2. I mean, another big chunk is coming.
It's 9.
9 million. Okay, so it's not a bigger chunk. That's a shame.
Right, it's smaller.
Smaller. If you can just help me understand how the scaling up process is going to work, and if you see that being able to happen in time before we do hit a cliff, or is there not really a cliff? How does this process work outside of MDHA? And I think that's my question.
Okay. Well, our scaling up started already. And the scaling up for us began, as I said, a couple of weeks ago when we just went and made an appeal to the public and said, look, we know you're waiting, but we got to have this information. And so they responded. And so our numbers are reported on a weekly basis. Councilmember Suara told me yesterday she didn't want to wait for my Monday report. Just smile at her. She wanted something today, and what I provided, I'm sorry, I don't even know if I got to that in my presentation, is the fact that between Monday evening, which was when our last report went out, I want to make sure I think that number should be up there. Thank you. Between Monday evening, we were at about 2.2 million. By close of day yesterday, we were at just over 3 million. That's actual payments out, and that's in a matter of 3 days or so. And that's literally because our customers have responded, and so have the landlords. They've been bringing in their information. They are calling us. It's why we need additional people, because we are doing callbacks, and those callbacks, as I mentioned, they take time because you literally stay with them on the phone on average, probably about 20 minutes. It could be 20 minutes per person, because you're trying to make sure that with that individual you're helping them. And can I just be frank with you and say it's not a quick call, because they want you to know what's going on in their life. They want you to know what's happening. They want you to, so you can't just say, well, I just need this. I need to hang up the phone, right? So these calls do take time, but it also allows you an opportunity to make sure you're checking for other things, because sometimes they don't say I have a detainer warrant. And so even though she mentioned Mr. Rooker's office, he gives us a list. We run that list through our system to see how many of those people are actually in the HOPE system. If they have a detainer warrant, if they have something, we immediately pull them. It goes to...
Like I say, new
Sorry,
vocabulary.
I
What's a detainer
apologize.
warrant?
I apologize. I didn't know either before this program, and I'm probably going to do a terrible job, and Judge Bell will need to explain. As I understand it, and I have read a few recently, it's when they are notified of a date that they have to appear in court. Is that right? You'll have to do this explanation. From what I gather, it seems to be the first notification that they receive, because we ask them, have you received it? And most of the time, they don't just offer it until you ask. But is that the correct explanation? Okay.
That's the correct layman.
Okay, that's the layman term. I know there's something more, but it's really their first notification that their landlord, that they're having to go to court. So because Mr. Rooker sends that to us, we run that through the HOPE system, and we're looking for people in the HOPE system who are on his list. Those individuals are pulled, and they go to the court team. There's 2 people, and those were the people that Judge Bell mentioned are in court with her. And they are making sure that they're on the list that Judge Bell has given them. They're checking to see if they're in legacy, as we have been instructed to do over and over again by Judge Bell and her team. And so then they're going to be prioritized because they have a detainer warrant. They do the same thing with individuals who have a court date. That's how they know to try and make sure that those individuals' information is into us and we can get them processed at least by the second court, and definitely if there's a third court, that we have their information, and hopefully by that time they're actually paid. So when Judge Bell was referencing some of the dollar amounts that the landlords were seeing, she was referencing those who were getting their payments done as a part of those courts. So there are some processes that I haven't gone into great detail about, but we have already ramped up, but we know we're having to bring on more people, largely for the phone calls, because we're having to call people back and walk them through what's in the system that's holding them up from getting processed.
And then one more question. Do most of the clients have access to computers, or is that a barrier that we have a solution to?
They have access to cell phones or computers. You can do this on your cell phone.
Okay.
Yes. And so what oftentimes happens, though, some of them will just tell you they're not comfortable. They would prefer to come in, and they do. As I mentioned, we have done and we'll be adding additional what we call upload fairs, meaning we will go to an apartment complex. We will go to a community center. We are attending events in the community where we actually do uploads for them or assist them in doing uploads. We actually have a team of 4 people out there now who are working, but also waiting in case customers came to hear this, where they could actually check their information for them in real time as well. So there are multiple ways that they have the ability to get information. We have some customers that's just not working for them. It's a challenge. They can't do it. They don't have computers. We have landlords who've been very clear, I don't have an email. And those tend to be small, landlords. It's just they're renting a property to one person. In that situation, oftentimes they're either coming in, and our team is helping them actually get that information uploaded. So not all of our customers can do this in this way. That's why it's so critically important, the partnerships that we have to help people get their information in the system. It can be challenging for individuals who do not deal with technology.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to everyone who's been working on this stuff so hard. It sounds like some good stuff is happening, and it's wonderful to see the sort of ramping up of folks getting paid over this week. So that's really phenomenal to see. So you mentioned that the guidelines have been reiterated a few times. Can you say if it feels like they're getting more restrictive or less restrictive, or is it not really falling on that spectrum?
They're trying to help us out because they're hearing the feedback. I mean, they're surveying us. They're asking us what the issues are. I think one of the articles that I saw said that across the nation, 5% of this money has gotten out to tenants. So they know that there are some real challenges in sometimes the vagueness of the guidelines. So sometimes the guidelines are saying, on one hand, it looks like you have flexibility, and then you read down below, and it's like, but if you do this, we're going to spank your hand. So what they've attempted to do, it looks like each time is to collapse it and make some things a little bit easier, including yesterday. I'll just give you a classic example. One of the things that I put on the screen was it's basically a 14-day time frame that we must give a landlord to respond to us before we say we're going to pay the tenant this to pay you. In the guidance that came out yesterday, it's 7 days. So that's huge that they have reduced that time. So what they're really attempting to do is to either clarify or reduce things in such a way that it makes it easier for us to meet the requirements and get people help.
Excellent, thank you. And I've just got a couple of other quick questions. So the ERA1, which is like the current round that y'all are working with, those funds need to be utilized by September?
Of 22 now. Originally, it was December of 21. They had to be utilized with 65% spent by September of this year. In the guidance, probably number 3, they altered that and said that the funds are good through September of 2022, but they're still paying attention to percentage of dollars spent by September. They've extended the time frame, but are still paying attention to the percentage of the dollars you're spending.
And so they still want 65% spent by September of this year?
They changed the language, made it quite vague, and said that individuals who have spent 65% can possibly receive money from those who did not spend 65% of their money. So it doesn't say you have to reach 65. It just lets you know that if you do, you could possibly get somebody else's money.
Understood. That gives us an excellent goal there then. And then I just had a couple of quick questions about
It's 22. It's September 22.
It sounds like there's kind of two ways that a person might become a HOPE applicant. You know, one being just finding out about the program and going and applying, and then the other is they go to court, and then there's MAC representatives there, or they get into legacy court, and there's more support and resources there. Do you have a sense of how many applicants have come from each bucket, and then is there a big difference in the success rate or the completion rate between those two buckets? Again, the people who sort of just find out about this maybe because they hear about it in the community, or the people who get involved because they are in court.
I don't have a sense of whether one is more successful than the other. I can say definitively that sometimes when we can't get information, it's a lot easier to get it through the courts. Because our team is there, the tenant is there with Judge Bell and even the landlord, usually the landlord representative. I don't know what the percentage is, but I can say pretty confidently that it can be a boost to people to get it to us. And I will have to be honest with you, when they see how much money it is, it boggles the mind for people that somebody's rent is being paid in arrears, and then they're getting paid 3 months forward to try and stabilize the household. So what we saw, and I think Judge Bell probably had a similar observation, when they started to see how much money it was that was actually coming, it seems like the cooperation increased. Is that accurate?
And I will say that I've talked with Richard Rooker, our circuit court clerk, and I've also talked to my data research analyst. We are looking at the numbers and the difference of what's been filed for eviction, what has been settled, in general in the eviction courts. I hate the word eviction courts, to be honest, but 1A and 1B, the normal trial docket, and then what cases have said, you know what, we want to streamline, we want to work with the process, we want to see if there's funding available to pay the landlord, to pay the tenant, to keep the roof over the individual's head. I will say, just in my observation, sitting on the bench for the last 9 years, and then also just because of the moratorium and courts not being open, that because of our court, we were one of the only courts really proceeding and processing because of the moratorium. So a number of judges aren't really able to go on and sign off on the detainer action right now, aren't willing to sign off on the detainer action right now, even though there are 11 of us, and depending on what the measures are, it could be because it's not just non-payment of rent, could be criminal activity, could be that the tenant already vacated, could be the tenant doesn't want to stay there anymore, could be the landlord has sold the property, it could be an estate matter. There are a number of different issues as to why an individual has in fact been evicted per se, or judgment has rendered. However, we're the only court in place to divert them from that court to the settlement court. So I'm not the trial judge, so I have a lot of leniency to talk about a number of different things because I'm not the trial judge, so I don't have to recuse myself from listening to too much information about the landlord or too much information about the tenant because I'm not the trial judge, I'm the settlement judge, which gives me a lot of more ability to control what's happening on those Tuesdays. So for a while, 1A and 1B, those dockets could only have up to 25 cases per docket. We were at 50 cases per docket on Tuesday because of the fact that there were so many people facing eviction and were afraid. And I call it they're on the cliff. We want to get them off the cliff, find them some funding, find them some resources. And most of the landlords, to be frankly honest with you, if there's not a criminal activity or some other situation going on, they want the money and they understand. And the landlord is also able to pay their attorney. So the attorney's getting paid, the late fees are being paid, the court costs are being paid, and the tenant is being able to have their arrears paid. So it's a win-win if they're just patient. And as you know, I just got my tax return literally last week and I turned them in January. So I mean, it takes a little bit of time when you're working with federal funds. And so it's just, there's a process.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm hoping that this meeting is helpful to folks in the community, landlords and tenants, and letting them know that this is out there and that it can work for people and that it's probably the best outcome for a lot of people possible. And I have one other quick question. It's just a clarifying question. I don't want to take up the entire floor here. So you're cross-checking the both the general sessions and the legacy dockets for HOPE applicants. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. And then is there like, for the 1A, 1B, the morning eviction docket, for lack of a better phrase, is there someone from MAC at general sessions each time that happens?
When the courts first opened back, we did. We had both legal liaisons from MAC there in the hallway and then the courts making an announcement. So in 1A, there's a judge, and I have 2 members with the Music Community Court that are identified and dedicated to the Legacy Housing Resource Diversionary Court. If the judge is willing, they're able to make an announcement in open court so that the landlord and the tenant know that there is a settlement court called the Housing Resource Diversionary Court. If they want to learn more information, we have a court slip that they will receive telling them when their next case will be. And all those cases from 1A and 1B always go to the 130 docket because it's number 1. It just makes sense. Also in 1B. So both of those dockets are now going at 10 o'clock every day. 1A is going to go back to 9 o'clock. And 1B is going to go back to 10 o'clock. So I may just have one designated person, but we have a banner outside and a table outside in the hallway, also upstairs before you come to Richard Ricker's office on the 2nd floor. So if you're going to file a detainer or respond to a detainer, it's got a QR code on it that sends you to everywhere you need to be. And it's our process is just very simple. We just need to know your name, your docket number, your point of contact information, good contact information, so we can get in contact with you. If you're able to get to the Tuesday docket, in a sense, I call that's the protection docket. Nothing's going to happen. You're not getting evicted. You're not going to be facing some situation that doesn't have some hand-holding. The hand-holding is with MAC. I've asked MAC to no longer be there Monday through Friday in the mornings because my team can handle that. And their team can be at the office handling it when the people start calling and trying to process. Having 2 staff members for better more of 3 hours. That was 6 hours a day that Mac was losing. My team, even though I'm doing it, but I would love more staff too, but I'm losing about 8 hours a day of them just sitting in the hallway explaining information about the Legacy Housing Resource Diversionary Court. However, it's the right thing to do because the people, as I've always will continue to say, these people are dealing with situations and circumstances. They're traumatized, they're afraid. Some of them can't read. Some of them are just challenged. And so if you don't have somebody there with them, hand-holding it with them, and just send them to a portal or send them just to an electronic database, we're going to lose out on a lot of people. And then just the face-to-face interaction and having somebody to answer your questions and have you calm down. Because most people that are coming to court for eviction are traumatized. They are afraid. So having my staff there every day, Monday through Friday, and then they talk to Mac every day in the afternoon and communicating vigorously on the different tenants and individuals that are coming to our 1:30, 2:30, and 3:30 docket. And then on Tuesdays, every Tuesday, Mac is there to help process the people that come to court and then meet with them in the hallway to see what their next steps are and schedule appointments with them. So they get 3 dockets. They get 3 continuances before they may, in fact, end up back in the eviction court. But I have to say this, if the landlord doesn't want to continue to work the process, I cannot keep them in the Housing Resource Diversion Court. If the tenant doesn't want to continue to work the process, I cannot keep them. This is a voluntary court. My role is to try to keep them in the court, but if they do not, my role is also to say, okay, here's your court docket. You can go to 1A and 1B, and you can go before the trial judge. But my announcement always is get you a lawyer and still work the process with Metro Action Commission, still work the process with seeking funding, because at the end of the day, whether you get evicted or not, you're still going to have this debt. Landlord, you're still going to be wanting to collect the debt, and you can become a debt collector, and more than likely, you're not going to collect it. So at least try to work getting the funding, no matter what you decide to do. But most of them, I don't want to give a correct stat. I know we'll be giving you that, but I would say 7 out of 10 individuals stay with us. And then, like I said, 2 or 3 that leave come back to us because they're realizing they're going to get a payment that's upwards of $10,000 or $15,000 more that they wouldn't have had otherwise. And maybe they want to work it out with the tenant. Maybe they don't. But I'd rather get the money and then work it out with the tenant on down the road instead of having a $20,000 debt where I can actually get United States federal funding for.
Absolutely, yes. And so even if there's a judge that does not wish to have the announcement made in their courtroom, there is still a presence in the hallway, and people are still seeing and have the opportunity to get the information.
You're still in the hallway.
Okay, thank you.
There's signs all around the courthouse.
Thank you. That's what I was hoping for.
Yeah.
Councilmember Evans.
Thank you for recognizing me, even though I'm not on affordable housing. I appreciate all the really detailed information to help us understand kind of what we've heard on the news versus the reality of what you all are dealing with and trying to connect people to this funding. I think Dr. Crew might have emailed you just because I wanted to ask a question really for district CMs that want to get more involved in how we can really drill into the folks that maybe have applied, but you all need more help to get those folks to acknowledge the calls and the landlord's calls and that kind of thing. I've had some conversations with just a couple of landlords who have been successful in getting some things going with MAC and some of the programs. But I'm just wanting to know, I can go door knock. I can go, try to, get people's awareness raised if I know who the people are in my area who may be in the application pipeline. And is that a possibility for what you're doing?
From a privacy perspective, we couldn't tell you exactly who they are, but we are tracking information by zip code. We know which areas we have a high number of people who are actually submitting applications. There are some things we could work out with you, though, so we would be willing to work with you to see if, even if we come into the area, if they know we're going to be there, if they know we're going to be there to help them upload information, you could assist us with that. Because one of the things that we know in terms of the ramp up that we're needing is to help people get information into the portal. We can't actually type it in for them because of some of the information that's there, but we do sit there with them. Literally, there's somebody that sits there, they just turn the keyboard over to them, because you have to type this in because you're certifying that this information that you just put in here is true. So there are certain things, but absolutely, Lisa McCready from our team can work with you on what we think would be helpful. We have gone into some of the districts already to work with people so that we're closer to where they are. We have a number of other things that are planned that allow us to really be able to say, if you can just get us your document, we'll help you get it uploaded. I'll just give you an example. You can literally take a picture of it. This funding requires no original documents. That's unheard of. You could take a picture of your driver's license on your phone and upload it to us. So your lease, anything you have, there is no original document required. So you can use your phone to take a picture, you can use your tablet to take a picture, and many of our customers are. And let me just say this out of respect for the people that we serve. We recognize that there are some people who lack technological knowledge, but a lot of our customers do Facebook. They do things where they are uploading pictures, they're doing other kinds of things. So we have to give them some credit too, that they are used to using certain types of technology. And so for some of them, this is not as foreign to them as it is even for me, especially when it comes to what they do on their phones. I've been on the phone with people, and I'll say, I'm going to stay with you. She's like, oh, no, I just sent it. I took a picture, and I've already sent it. So we have to also be respectful of the fact that there are people that we serve that may have struggles, but it doesn't mean that they're incapable of using technology. We also know by the same token that we have people who really do need extra help, and that's what we want to be able to do, is be there to help them as well.
And that makes perfect sense. So Lisa can scope out by zip code, and then I could be a point person to coordinate a location and those things to try, and also market the opportunity and that kind of thing.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
I'm looking, I don't see any other hand. Dr. Krum and Judge Bell, Mr. Solomon, thank you for your presentation. I do want to tell council members that I forwarded an email Ms. Rosa should be sending to you. I asked for the notice of award for the grant, as well as copies of the frequently asked questions. I wanted to take a look at it myself to be able to see, and knowing that there was another release yesterday, yes, was like, okay. But I did forward all of that to you. The good news is that the last FAQ did talk about how do we remove the bottleneck, how do we make sure that you're able to process better, how do you partner with courts to do some things, and you have all of that, how do we help family with homelessness, all of that is in there, and the government is trying to make sure that they understand that there was a lot of restrictions on this, and they wanted to help get that money out. Yes, we have it till September 22, but the moratorium ends in July. Mm-hmm. And so the work that we have now is that, and I hope the people in the audience, I've got a lot of emails, and everybody cares so much about our community. Mm-hmm. The people in the non-for-profit community, everyone wants to help, and I think that's where the frustration comes in. And when you're looking at all this money and not coming out in time, it doesn't make sense. Mm-hmm. So this presentation is to explain some of what's the word I'm looking for, or some of the issues that we have that made it difficult. So now, what I wanted to focus on is we have a month. We have a lot of time with the money, but we have a month where people could get evicted. And so how do we ramp up that strategy to make sure that we avoid that? So my question to you, Dr. Krum, is first off, the non-for-profits that wants to help, mm-hmm, how could they help in this process to be able to get things out faster? What role can they play in this?
Well, I think we've had several meetings with the nonprofits, and one of the ways that they can help is certainly by assisting people in getting their information into the system currently. That's one of the big ways. The other way, I think, is as we're moving forward, I think I mentioned that we are in the process of opening up opportunities for the nonprofits to actually contract to do the services themselves, which means that they would be the person who would be approving the application. They would be working with the folks on their side that they have access to or that have access to them. But again, that portal is not expected to be ready until around mid-July, which doesn't do anything during this present time. So during the present time, working with us as closely as possible to assist customers that they know may be in the system. We would appreciate a call from the nonprofit saying, hey, this is John Smith. He's at my building. He says he has an application in. And he hasn't heard from you all or doesn't know what's going on. That would help us in being able to make sure that we're looking at and getting the information that we need from the customer in order for us to be able to process their application. That's one of the ways that they can assist. I think the other is to encourage customers to take advantage of the dollars that are here. And working with them and with us and trying to help make sure that they get taken care of timely.
Thank you. And Judge Bell, if I may ask, so when people get the notice and they come to court for their eviction, that's not the end of it. That's what you're saying for clarification. There are so many things that could happen before eviction happens, because some of the emails that I got was about people in court and landlord threatening that they would evict them. And so that's where some of the concerns come from. So what do we do at that point? I mean, how do we, I guess my question is, how do we get this information out to landlords, to residents, and even to the courts to make sure that this process is working and everybody knows about it?
Okay, I think that's a great question. When an individual receives a detainer warrant, they're served with it, either posted on their door or served with it by a sheriff or a private process server. It does have a court date on it. They're to come to court. When they come to court, my team is in the hallway to talk to them about the Legacy Housing Resource Diversionary Court and that they can divert their case from 1A and 1B, which is the eviction court trial docket, to the Tuesday docket, which is Tuesday at 1:30 in the afternoon. We are there every day, Monday through Friday, to talk to the landlord and to talk to the tenant. When the judge, before the docket call or after the docket call, some judges, majority of my colleagues have allowed my staff to make an announcement letting the individuals know about the Housing Resource Diversionary Court and the funding that's been made available by the United States Treasury to the tune of $20.8 million. And before this funding was in place, we used to make the announcement about the United Way CARES grant funding that our partners had. We are there every day to give this information. We have brochures, we have banners, we have QR codes, we've got flyers. So the landlords are aware when they come to court. Okay. A number of individuals, landlords come to court. A number of tenants are the ones that aren't coming to court because they're afraid to come to court. There may be a default judgment that has been entered because they didn't remember the court date. They feel that, oh, well, I'm going to get evicted anyway, so I'm not going to show up. So what we're trying to do is still have the landlord participate with the Housing Resource Diversionary Court and have the landlord move the case to the Tuesday docket. And then that's when Richard Rooker and I sent a letter to the tenant, you need to come to court. We're working to help you settle your case. And now they're coming to court. So they show up to Tuesday court. Okay. A lot of them are not showing up Monday through Friday because they're afraid to come to court. So we are sending letters, we are calling, we are emailing. If we can get their information, we're doing the best that we possibly can from that angle. But I do agree with the council members that if there's some kind of way that the council members could push out to your committee, to your community, or whatever kind of information we can give in a more robust way to those landlords and to those tenants that, yes, you may be facing eviction, but the city has made a commitment to try to work with you. We can't help everybody because the agreement has to be the landlord and the tenant being willing to come to our court. But if they're willing to come, then we can definitely do it. So I don't really know what else we could do other than manning the 1A and 1B docket, but I would think that the nonprofits have time if they want to help us in the mornings, because once the moratorium is over, courts are going to be open back up full throttle, and we're going to have 100 people in 1A and 100 people in 1B that are facing eviction, and my 2 staff members won't be able to handle that capacity, to be frankly honest with you. However, we will do the very best that we can, and we are doing the very best we can. The clerks are doing a great job. So the individual, they either say they want trial or they want a continuous date. And that doesn't happen, that doesn't take too long, but the explanation of what's happening in the hallway does take a little bit of time.
Wow. So if I hear you correctly, for my sake and for anyone else, is that even when the moratorium is over, if we don't catch people before then and the evictions are filed after that, we can actually even still catch them and pay at that point. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
that's why the Housing Resource Diversionary Court's in place. They can come to court in courtroom 1A and 1B, and they say, you know what, I do want to try to see if I can work out my case. Then we give them a continuous date, and they come to court on Tuesday. That Tuesday docket is usually 2 weeks after the eviction docket, the 1A, 1B docket, to give them 2 weeks to set up an appointment with MAC, to set up an appointment with my team to process the system. They have a court docket at 1:30. Then we're meeting with them in the hallway to see what they haven't done, what they still need to do. Then they get another continuance 3 weeks later for 2:30. Then from 2:30, they get another continuance about 3 weeks later for 3:30. So they have enough time to work the process, get their documents in, and try to work towards settlement. And I'm very happy when I hear at the 3:30 docket, Judge Bell, this case is pending payment, or Judge Bell, this payment has received $32,883, and the landlord is like, whoa. And then the attorney's like, my God. And the tenant's like, oh my God. You know, you'll see people crying and kind of wanting to shout in church, literally, because they're so happy that there was some funding put in place and they're able to keep a roof over their heads. And as you do know, a lot of people bring their kids to court because they want you to feel the whole gamut of what's happening to their life. So they're bringing their kids to court and their whole family. So,
Let's hope we get them before then, because we want to remove that extra stress of having to go there. But the fact that that's available is good. Councilmember Toombs, you're recognized, if I can find you. And I do want to say that we're almost at 12:30, but I did not put a time limit on this. This issue is very important, and a lot of people are impacted. And I want to make sure that we clear up as much as we can. So if you all would just be patient, I think we'll try to go till 1, or maybe we'll end before then. But please do be patient with us. Councilmember Toombs. There you are.
Thank you, Chair. I just had a question about resources, because you mentioned staffing and not having sufficient staff. So the funding that you've received for the rental assistance, is that money just for rental assistance? Is there any money for staffing, for technical assistance, the portal?
Yes, so the 10% administrative rate is what we're using for staffing. Part of it is because as when we were going through the process, we thought we had enough staff. We brought on 30 people for this program, 30. But as we were going through the process and seeing what was happening and what kind of support we were going to need for for the tenants especially, and for the landlords, but more so for the tenants, what started to happen is that the people that we thought were just going to be taking phone calls, again, you can't just take a call and move somebody. That's not happening. And so we were literally getting calls from everybody saying, people are waiting 30 minutes, people are waiting 40 minutes to get through. So we're having to ramp up based on what we've learned from administering the program and how much phone support, really, that people are needing when they call in. And so the dollars are there.
To ramp up the dollar there. Is Judge Bell?
We're gonna talk about it. See if I can get a couple more staff members.
Okay.
Yeah, when you talked about that ramp up, I thought, okay, I know I'll be hearing from Judge Bell.
Okay.
We always need more staff.
Thank you. I wanted to ask if the administration have anything to add, and if I can find which, Mr. Jameson. Is that the mic? No, I don't know which one is the table, so I'm going to keep pressing all of them. Keep checking.
I think you got me there.
Is that it?
Can you hear me?
No? Okay, let's try this one. What about that one?
Can you hear me now?
No, not that one.
I think they can hear me. I think I'm good.
Is that the one?
And with that, my time has expired, so thank you. I just wanted to express the administration's appreciation to Judge Bell and Mr. Solomon, but most especially to Metro Action Commission and Dr. Kroom. She is being modest about this, but I think the past several weeks and months she has been working nights and weekends to distribute as much of this funding as possible into the hands of as many people as possible. And she's going to be the last person to tell you that, but we've seen that through the administration's office and want to know her. Let her know from the bottom of our hearts how grateful we are in a truly thankless job. Also want to convey to council members, I think there's been some outreach to finance and Mary Jo Wiggins. She had to be traveling today and could not be here, but she has received some calls from council members essentially asking, why cannot this be as distributed as easily as CARES funds were distributed? And I think what you've heard today is that this is certainly not apples to apples. And the ERAP funds come with a variety of different rules and regulations. And now we're on our 5th iteration thereof, which I suspect is a reflection of the contact that the federal agencies are getting with respect to the difficulty of applying this, and all of that has fallen on Mac's shoulders, Judge Bell's shoulders, and we're grateful for them for wrestling through that. Having said that, it does look like the ERAP funds do have an application that will be extremely helpful that we did not have under CARES, including paying rent forward and so forth. So there's certainly reason to be diligent in pursuing this, but it is not apples to apples, I think is what Ms. Wiggins would want me to relay. But bottom line, we are extremely grateful to Dr. Kroom and her team, and hope everybody can give them their support in the weeks and months to come. Thank you.
Thank you. I do want to, for the council members and anyone that have access to this, if you get hold of the award documents and you're able to look at page 4, article number 11, it reads, any funds paid to recipient in excess of the amount to which the recipient is finally determined to be authorized to retain under the terms of this award, that are determined by the Treasury Office of Inspector General to have been misused, or that are not repaid by recipient as may be required by Treasury pursuant to Section 501D, shall constitute a debt to the federal government. I wanted to read that so that as someone who deals with grants and compliance, I get the bottleneck. I get wanting to have a system that will make sure that we meet all the requirements of the grants, because we don't want them to ask for the money back. I think explaining that and having everyone understand that is very important. But I also do get the frustration. We don't want that to stop us from helping people. People are hurting here, and that's very important. That's where the frustration comes in. And so I'm hoping that with this presentation, and I'm hoping that in the next month or so, and with all the steps that are put in, that we're actually able to expedite things, and with the new release from the federal government, that give us a little bit more leeway, that we can do a whole lot better. I will implore everyone, my colleagues, the council members, to see if there are ways that they can push it out in the social media, in the news, for people to be aware of this program. I like what Councilmember Evans says, can we help host an event in our district? Yes. I want to implore my friends with the non-for-profit that are very experienced in this also to help us out in reaching to people right now, helping fill out the application, letting people be aware, actually calming people down that, that the first notice is not the end of it. There is a process and we're working through it. We will need your help in that. I'm going to ask Mark that there is an urgency. There is an urgency. We have to, if we're doing 10 before and 100, we have to do 200 because we really want to make sure that we take care of our folks. I will ask also that if, and I'll talk to Dr. Kroom outside, but I do want to report back to the Affordable Committee by our next meeting to be able to see how much we've been able to give between now and then. And that meeting will be July 6th, not a lot of time, but I wanted to see the progression just like I did yesterday to see that it's actually moving and that things are going in the direction that we hope it is. So we need to keep looking at it. We need to keep doing all that we are doing. And so thank you all so much. Thank you, Dr. Kroom. Thank you, Judge Bell. Thank you, Mr. Solomon, and everyone that is here. If there are no other questions, comments, I'm looking around. I don't see any. I guess we end before one.
Council member
Yes,
Suarez, if I could just say very, very quickly, thank you so much for your kind words, but that goes to my team who do feel this sense of urgency, who are working night and day, who are waking up at midnight, 2 a.m. in the morning, getting back on their computers and working to help families. So I want to make sure, it would be remiss of me not to recognize the incredible to continue that forward. So thank you so much.
Thank you, and thank you to you and your staff as well. Councilmember Taylor, you recognize.
Thank you. My apologies for my tardiness, Chair. I cleared up a few questions that have already been asked that I was going to ask, so thank you, Councilmember Evans. In regards to the individuals that you are trying to mobilize or trying to encourage to complete the documentation, we cannot know the names or anything, but you guys have those.
We do.
Is it possible for you all, if we could help create an event or a space, is it possible for you to do the mailings to invite them directly?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And then does it have to be a paid staff or to help you with completing the documentation, or can we invite volunteers to help with that as well?
The volunteers are helping people sort of understand how to get things into the system. And we could do a quick training with the volunteers just to say, this is how you show them how to do an upload. So no, they don't have to be staff, but we would like to train them just to make sure that they're comfortable if they're helping other people.
Thank you. And I'm prepared to have an event on the 22nd in my district, July 22nd, if that works for you all.
Okay.
And I will plan to recruit about, I'm looking at Ms. Haddock, to recruit about 20 to 25 volunteers, maybe more, if that will work for you. Can we do that?
Ms. McCready, who handles that for us, is over to my left.
Perfect.
She'll be the person that'll work with you on that.
Thank you.
What time frame are you thinking?
Evening, in the evening, if we can. If we need to go all day, because I think it would be, may take some time if we need to have some different time stamps, or if we need to ask people. It depends on what the messaging can say. I think we can have people sign up for an appointment, or we can just ask them to come between X time, this time. So I can work with Ms. McCready, but I think that this is important. Hopefully the numbers aren't high in my district, but unfortunately I think they are. So I just wanted to see, but if we can, because if we can't pinpoint who they are, but you can, if you guys have the bandwidth and the financial resources to send the mail, we can help you get the people there, find the location, one, and then two, make sure that we can then find the volunteers so you don't have a skeleton staff back at out in East Nashville. So just trying to work through that.
Thank you so much.
All right, any last words? All right. Thank you all so much for coming. I hope you have a nice weekend.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.